I lied. Hey everyone, it's Danica and welcome back to the Writing Nook. Last time I talked to you, I told you about my plans for Camp NaNo and how I was planning to do #NaNoFinmo, finishing my Nano novel from last year. Well, I'm not gonna do that. In the spirit of being a true Nano rebel, I am going to change my project. In fact, I already have. So I came up with this story on the first day of Camp NaNo that's set in the same fantasy world as Project Order, the book that I was going to finish this month, and it just wouldn't leave me alone. I wrote like 2,000 words of brainstorming that day, just from bits of dialogue and scenes and things. Like the story was already coming into shape. I feel like I kind of knew I was getting the arc of it. So it was just pouring out of me and I felt so inspired, and I haven't felt that inspired in a really long time. So I was really torn because on one hand, I really do want to finish Project Order and I believe that I will at some point, but I feel super inspired for this particular story right now and I really kind of want to capitalize on it. And so for a little while, I was kind of warring with myself of like, is this shiny new idea syndrome, or is this just a sign that it's like time to work on a different project because I'm a little stuck? I decided that it was the latter. And I have officially switched to working on my new project, Project Red. Doesn't sound like a very innovative project title. The reason why it's Project Red is because one of my first images of this story was this girl in a gorgeous red dress with like gold embroidery, like walking down this stone pathway to this really big, intimidating temple. This story is going to be so much fun. It is a YA fantasy enemies to lovers romance. What had kind of sparked this idea is I was thinking about how, you know, I'm really tired of seeing all of these protagonists who are the like not like others girls trope. They don't like clothes, they don't like makeup, they don't like girly things. They have to be really good at fighting and kind of violent. And I was like, you know what? I want someone who's the opposite of all of those things. Someone who is like stereotypically girly in many ways, but is still a total badass and like super powerful. So I am doing a new project, but I'm doing a new project with a twist. So one thing I have been wanting to do for a while is to read through some of the many craft books that I have and use them to improve my writing, specifically my plotting skills and, you know, my story craft abilities. So with this new book, I have decided to read through Story Genius and work through all of the examples that she has in here as I am reading and plotting and growing my story. What I really like about this book is that it really takes you from the seed of an idea to a fully formed plot. So I'm gonna try her method. We'll see how much of it works for me, how much of it doesn't. It's like a super highly recommended craft book that I've been wanting to read for a while, and it just feels really perfect to test the waters with this new method, with this story that I'm so excited about. And during Camp NaNo, honestly, it feels perfect. So this book is split up into 3 sections. The first is just kind of like an introduction, which I read a while ago and honestly skipped because I didn't find it that helpful. The second part is breaking down kind of the pre-writing phase of getting to know who your characters are, what the conflict is. And then the third part is her talking about her like blueprinting method for like creating and growing the story. It uses a lot of scene cards and I don't know, other things that I haven't read yet. Yesterday, I actually started out on the second part. So I have been working through the pre-writing of my story. She walks you through a lot of different exercises to think about the point that you're trying to make and then delving into your character, who they are, who they were before the story started, and writing out several backstory scenes that you could potentially include in your novel if you wanted to, but at the very least, you can use as kind of twists in your novel when you find out about the character's past. I'm on basically the last chapter of the second part. Then I need to sit down and write my scenes. And then after that, I will get into part 3 where I'm working on the actual story. I actually have a document of all of my ideas for this story, and I have so many scenes already kind of brainstormed and snippets of dialogue that go in them that I really think the blueprinting process will not be that bad. But you know, knock on wood. I figure we can just kind of get started and I'll take you along today as I'm working through these scenes. We'll see how it goes. It's been a minute. So when I last talked to you, I believe it was Easter. It was Sunday, April 4th. I had every intention of vlogging the rest of my day. However, that didn't happen. But part of what happened was last weekend, I got really deep into my story and working on it. Honestly, I think I worked too much for too long because by the end of the weekend, I was really tired. And so going into my actual work was kind of a tough turnaround, but nevertheless, we're back now with this non-vlog vlog. And I just kind of wanted to give you guys a wrap up of how this week has gone for me, what's happening for NaNoWriMo, and yeah, just check in with you guys, like see how you're doing, how's it going? So I think I'm gonna get myself settled. You get yourself settled too, and let's chat. New angles, who's she? Oh my God, it's ridiculous. So I believe at the beginning of this week, I told you guys about my shift to my new Camp NaNoWriMo project, Project Red, and the fact that I'm doing an experiment this month where I am plotting this book from start to finish using Story Genius. So today I want to tell you about how the first week of that experiment challenge is going. Overall, I have really been enjoying this book and I've really been enjoying this process. I can see why Project Order was going astray, and I think I know some of the things I need to change in order to get myself back on track with that project. And I really wouldn't have figured that out if I hadn't have taken a break and started using this. So the first thing that really struck me about this book is that it is truly the guide to like brainstorming that I wanted. When I first started brainstorming Project Order, I felt so lost. Every writing craft source I looked at was like, okay, so first you come up with some ideas and then you do all these other things. And I felt like no one was telling me how to come up with ideas or how to tell which ideas were good ideas. And so I was getting lost right here in the beginning. And I remember I just kept thinking there has to be a better way than this. What I have loved about this book is that it truly talks about how to come up with ideas and how to pick which ideas are good ideas. Basically, I think her process boils down to asking why something has happened, what happened before it happened to cause that thing, and then why does all of it matter? Which seems like really simple questions to ask yourself. This is something that I've been thinking about recently. Things that are true are obvious, but they won't be obvious to you unless you've heard them before or unless you have gone through the process of discovering them. So that leads me to the second thing I wanted to talk to you about. This book is pretty much entirely about background. I think her whole point is that you need to know what happened before an event in order to have the proper context to make it impactful and make it meaningful. I really see what she's saying. So for a long time, I was like, oh man, there are so many characters I read from books that I love. Like, what is it that goes into those characters that makes me really love them? And I do think a big part of it is a well-crafted background story that gives me the empathy for that character and their situation to understand why they think the way they think. Already just coming up with potent backstories for my characters, I think has brought them to life. It's also made me think about a theory that I've had for a little while about how even on the like line level of your prose, novels are impactful to the extent that they provide context. Like I was reading a book recently and I was like, wow, this book is really pulling me through the story. Like I need to know what happens next. And what I was realizing is that even in every sentence, they didn't just say what was happening, but they gave you buttressing information that explained to you why it mattered or gave you more than just the immediacy of the moment. Either they gave you some insight into the past or some insight into the future, all within that sentence. Because if they just described exactly what was happening in a very clinical fashion, it would not be very interesting. Instead of saying that like, she sat in the corner of a bar, saying something like, she sat in her usual spot, nursing her fourth drink of the night and, you know, eyeing the door carefully. That gives you a lot more context to her past of, you know, how she comes to this bar regularly, the fact that she's already been there for a little while. So it gives you insight into the past and the future. Then, you know, the last question is just like, how has it been going? I think it's been going really well. My official goal for Camp NaNoWriMo is 30,000 words. And I am counting every word that I write for preps. And I have been able to write every day. I think I'm very close to 10,000 words right now, actually. I have not been putting super big pressure on myself to write a lot of words every day, but I have been making an effort to work on my story every day. I've done pretty much all of the pre-writing exercises up until she tells you to start writing the background scene that kind of originated your character's misbelief. But I have been getting really kind of stuck, and I realize it is because I am letting perfect get in the way of good. It feels so impactful and meaningful and beautiful, like in the way I see it in my mind. And then when I write it down, it just looks like putty. And so because of that, I feel bad about writing it, or I like don't want to write, or I worry it's like not good enough to fulfill the requirements even of this book, that like somehow I need to write perfect intro scenes in order to start my book. It's the classic inner editor that NaNoWriMo always tells you to just like hide in a box. You shouldn't be caring about your inner editor, right now at least. Your inner editor comes out when you're editing. I think I just need to lower the bar for myself as far as like what is acceptable for these intro scenes. And you know, the other thing is just like, I feel like the process of learning writing craft is the process of getting closer and closer to that image that you have in your head and having it down on paper. That's my big struggle right now, is trying to get myself to let go and let it be messy and not perfect. Classic struggle. Just trying to be okay with the imperfections of the world and of my current writing ability. That, my friends, is how Camp NaNo is going for me. Please, in the comments down below, tell me how you guys are doing. How was your first week? Have you been able to get a good chunk out of your goal? Are you ahead? Are you falling behind? Are you struggling like I am to banish your inner editor to Siberia? That, I think, is going to be all for me for this week. I'm going to attempt to try daily vlogging next week and take you guys along in my fight against perfection. And we will see how it goes. I will see you all later. Bye. Welcome to another episode of I Can Only Vlog Successfully on the Weekends. Alright. Tragedy has recently occurred. I knocked over my lamp. That sucks because said lamp is not mine.